Hello, this is Christian. In this video, I'm going to do a walkthrough how to help you create this Angular app. And then in a separate video, I'm going to show you how to actually add this Bootstrap template to your app. Okay, so let's go to the Visual Studio Code. So by now, you should have Visual Studio Code and Node.js installed. If you don't have those installed yet, please do that first. Okay, so if this is the first time for you, you will see this, but you can turn this off. You don't need this one here, and you can uncheck this box here so it doesn't show any time if you don't want to use it. I'm not going to use it in mine. Okay, so if it's the first time, just click any icon on the left here, or expand the Explorer window here, and the first thing is you want to add a folder to your Explorer here. Okay, so just basically click here. Go find your folder. I'm using my documents folder, and then I have a folder called projects. Select that and then click open. Okay, if you don't have it, just create one and then open that. Now I already have these two installed here, so I'm not going to go and recreate again. So once you have it, it should be empty, and then just click the folder icon here, or just right click and add a new folder, and then give it a name, and then call it Angular, and then you're good to go. Okay, so I'm going to step over and go to the other version of the IDE. I have two copies here, so you can have multiple copies if you want. Okay, you can go to like File, the new window, and now you can see that I have another one showing up, and you can have multiple instances. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go open the other one here. So this one, let me see, I'm going to close that one also, and let's see if I have the other one open. Nope, I think I closed it. So let's open up my other one. Yeah, I thought it was open, but it was not. So, okay. So now, once you are in here, oh, interesting. I lost it. Okay, that's really interesting. All right, so I'm gonna go to the project folder, and we'll keep it as that then. All right, so then to go to the Angular folder, again, I already installed mine, so I'm not gonna do it again. It takes a while to install. My machine's kind of slow, but it does take a couple of minutes. So just make sure you have it installed. I'm gonna right click into this folder and go to the terminal. And so now I'm inside Angular. If I do a dir, or if you're using the command as your command line terminal here, okay? Now from here, you shouldn't have anything here, right? So once you insert Angular, it should be empty, and then you just do ng new and then flight-app, and you install that. Okay, so I'm not going to do it. For example, if I do that now, it's going to prompt for basically two questions. Let's see if it lets me. Okay, so if it says, do you want to add Angular route, just say yes. And do you want to use the style sheet? And then just select the default, the CSS, okay? And just hit enter. And then it will do installation for you. I'm not going to do it. I did already. And then once you are done, and then you can then navigate to dir. You can navigate to the flight app. So just go to cd flight app, to type a tab, and then go in there. And then in here, if you dir, you see a list of all your files. That's what you see over here. Okay, now we're not going to use Git to manage our sources. If you want to do that, if you know how to do it, that's fine. But I'm not going to do it because it just takes too much time to keep pushing and updating and stuff. So I'm not going to do that. But you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to delete it, then you need to delete that hidden Git directory. It's hidden here with a .git. As you can see, you don't see it here, okay, because it's hidden. You can do that here, or you can go to your window folder. So you can just right click on the Angular here and just say review the file explorer, and it will open that folder for you. And inside here, there's a folder called .git. Okay, this is the hidden folder, so you can delete that. You don't need that. Okay, you can remove that and then just delete it. Alternatively, if you want to do from the code, then you have to do a dir /a to see that. Okay, if you're using the CMD. So I see this is the .git here, and you can just delete that by doing delete. Now I recommend that we use a different one called the PowerShell. Usually most Windows have it. If you don't, we can go and install it. I'm gonna use PowerShell because the color coding is nicer and the commands are very kind of related to Unix So if you're a Mac user, you're a Linux user, so it's easier to make things for everyone. So I'm going to select that as my default. As you can see, it's not changed here until I open another one. So instead of closing this one, I just click the plus sign to add a second terminal. Now it's in PowerShell. Okay, so I'm going to navigate back to the Angular, back the tab, and it would take your shortcut, go to the flight. Okay, so now instead of dir, same as before, I could also use ls for list using Linux or Mac version. Okay, again, you don't see that dot git because it's hidden, so I cannot do like ls a like that, right? It doesn't work. Or dir a, that doesn't work either because it's not PowerShell. And to see the hidden file, you have to say ls and then the dash force. Type the word force, and then you'll see what's inside here is again the dot git. Okay, so we could just delete that one for now. And to delete it using PowerShell, you just say rm for remove, and you want to put the force command and then .git. Okay, and that should remove PowerShell. Are you sure? Just say yes, and that will remove that for you. And you can just make sure again it's not there. So I'll go back and see that if it's still there. Okay, if it's not there anymore, then you're good to go. And so we don't have to care about source control here. Okay, ideally, if you work in a real environment, yes, you have to. It's just useful. So I'm going to go back to this one here, and I don't need this one, so I'm going to terminate this by clicking the trash can. All right, so now we are good to go. And then I'm already inside the app here, and then to run it, it's already functional. You just type in ng serve, okay, and you put the dash O here. It's going to open the browser automatically, open a default browser. And if it doesn't open, you can still navigate to localhost, with the port number. I think 4200 is the default port number. But it should render and it should load the browser. My computer is kind of slow, so it might take a few seconds here. And once it's running, we can keep it running. You don't have to cancel it. You can just open another terminal here, and like so, right? So I can do all my stuff here if I want to, and I can keep my other terminal running, so the server is running. So as you leave it running, you make changes in your code, and then you run, and then your browser will you refresh it, things will change here. So this is your app. Okay, this is the default layout, and all the versions, I think prior to Angular 8 has a different layout. As you saw in the older video, I did Angular 6. The layout's different. It was very plain, and so they just thought, hey, give it a little bit a new, fresh look, and so they updated a little bit here. But that's just the layout. Okay. All right. So this is the Angular application, and then let's go back to the code. So you can see it's running now. I can leave that, or you can close it for now if you don't want it. I'm not going to do that anymore down there for now. So here we have some of these files. These are important. Okay, so make sure your package.json is there. This one just tells npm what packages you use inside here. Okay, and also if you happen to delete all your no modules folder, which is also why I mentioned in my notes that do not include this folder. As you can see, if you open this, you see a ton of files. It's a lot of them. All these are libraries. Okay, you need it because they are required by other libraries. The Angular needs them. TypeScript needs them. Other modules need them as well. So they all put into this no modules folder, and it's really huge. So don't include that in any of your distributions, either whether uploading to Blackboard or you want to share with me or share other people. Just don't include that. All you need is just this package.json file. This one here manages all your dependencies. Okay, so all these here are packages plus your development dependencies here. All these are all managed by npm. And so once you have this magic file, this is the metadata file, you just go into the terminal and type npm install, and it will install everything, all the dependencies and all these files and directories or libraries to the no modules, which is why you don't need it. Okay, so that is that for the tsconfig.json file. This is for TypeScript. It's a configuration for TypeScript because again, Angular uses TypeScript as the underlying language to do all the coding. although it's a superset of JavaScript. All the syntax are just like JavaScript, with a few minor changes, but it is still just JavaScript. So after all, but it manages that for you. So you don't need to change anything here at all. We're not going to do that here until much later. We'll see. So that is also required. The Angular.json, this is specifically for Angular only. So again, here it tells you what your app is all about, where to start. The root location is in the root directory here. Okay, the name of your app, right? And then some of the build options here. When you build, every time when you run a compile, it builds this for you. And if you want to do CV for a live production, this is what it's gonna do. Okay, we'll talk about these ALT stuff later. It's really important. ALT means ahead of time. It's a compilation process, and your assets in here, style sheets. Okay, all those info here. Feel free to explore and look what they mean. Okay, so just information about your Angular project, and then inside the SRC is where you have all your Angular code. Okay, inside there, by default, you're going to have three folders: the app folder, assets, and environments. We don't have to deal with the environments here at all. Just leave that as is, and then don't delete either. Okay, you want to keep that because it does look in there for the environment, either production or development. Leave that as is. The assets is is where you're going to put all your assets. I guess mean like what do you call those? Static data. Okay, so if you have images, your own style sheets, or any other data, videos, you put inside your assets folder here. And this is we're going to put our Bootstrap themes in here eventually. Okay, and then in the app folder is where you keep all your components. Okay, by default, this is the root component. Angular creates that for you automatically. It happens to be called app.component. So this is the app component, and then we'll build all your components inside this app folder. So eventually you're gonna have a folder for like the nav component, footer component, the flight data component, and login, logout, for example. All those will be in here, their own separate folders, and then so you kind of manage them so in a really nice fashion. Okay, and let me close this. One of these here you see is the index.html. Okay, so this one here, it's outside of the app. It's in the SRC folder, right? But it's outside here. So this is the single page application. That's what it means. Single page means you have only one single index file, and everything will be built on here. So the entry point to your app is through this tag on line 11 called app-root. Okay, this is a valid HTML. It's a custom HTML tag. You can do that now with HTML5. You can write a JavaScript to create your own custom HTML tag, and that will be recognized by browsers, or because it's going to be managed in JavaScript. The only rule is that if you create your own custom tag, you must use the dash. Okay, so you can have like something like this. Oops, you cannot do that. I mean, I'm gonna say you cannot, but it's confusing because the browser would think that that is a legal, standard HTML tag. Okay, so to avoid any confusion or any conflict with future elements, because who knows, down the road they might have their own element called app-root, right? So it's safe to put a dash in here for every tag. You can have multiple words if you want. My dash first dash app, right? It doesn't matter. So that is the standard use, and that's what Angular uses this. Other languages use it as well, and so that's just the standard way to do it. Okay, so all your Angular components will be injected through or to this single root here, and this is called the root component, the root element, and you must have a root element to start with. Okay, so this is your index file. Anything you want to add to the entire application, anything that usually is static that don't change, then you put into this file. Like for example, a style sheet, right? They'll always be available through the entire site. Then you put it here. Anything that is always will not be changed is static, right? Like maybe a footer, for example, that won't Probably that won't change. You can put it here too if you want. But for our example, we're going to add into a component, so we manage it by Angular. Okay, so when we create our template, we're going to go to this file and add some stuff in here because they will never change, right? But so just understand where this is, why is it here, and how do you know? How does it know it's running to use this file as the root page? Well, again, it's inside the Angular, and then this setup here, this metadata file, will tell you that it's looking for this index file in this location as the entry point. I think it's in the Angular, or yeah, the Angular here, right? It tells you the main. This is the main entry file, and this is the index, the entry point, which is inside the src, and then the index file. If you want to use a different name, just change that here. Maybe home.html, then make sure you change this to say home.html. Okay? So your entry point goes through the src main ts. So in here, there's a main ts, right? So you open that, you see this is where Angular starts. Okay? It needs all of these here. And again, Angular has a root component and also a root module. So you can see this is called the app module. This is a module, this is the root module that needs to be bootstrapped to the browser, and the browser will point to the index file we just mentioned, bootstrap to this tag here. Okay? And we import that in here because you want to separate all your code into their own separate files, and that is the ideal way to do it. Of course, you can put all these inside a single file here if you want, but that's besides the point. Okay, you want to separate your components into their own separate files, and we just import them in wherever we need them. Right? So if you trace this from the app module, go in here, you can go inside the app folder here, or you can just do a if you click on it, I think if you press F12, like F12, as you can see, it takes you right to the file shortcut, or you can just do a right click here and then just say go to definition, the same thing, right? And it will load that file for you automatically and take you right there. Okay, so this is the app module, and the module that contains other components. In this case, just one component, and this is called the root module. And a root module, how do you know if it's a root module or not? Well, one thing for sure is you can look for two things. One is if it uses called the browser module as an import, okay, then likely that's a root module. Two, it has this property called the bootstrap down here. Okay, so only one module can be a root module. You cannot have like 2 or 3 root modules. Okay, there's only one. And so this has happened to be the root module. That's why we are exporting this app module out to the main TS, and then it bootstrap that to the HTML. And then also the second rule is that you must have one root component. So if this is the root module, then this must be the root component because you can only bootstrap one root component here, right? Ideally. So the app component is the root component. Again, where does it go? Is usually it's contained inside the same area, the same folder, because all these are called app component, add module. Then the convention is to all have the same name prefix. So you can see all these like app inside the app folder, and app.component, app.whatever it is. Okay, and then so the add module is here, add component, and if you open that file, this is what the component looks like. And then in the component here, you can see that it has the decorator to say that that's a component. Inside here tells you the selector it needs to attach to the DOM, right? So it's the app root, and this one here, because it's the root component, that's why the root module in the program would, attach or bootstrap this to the HTML. Okay, if you call it differently, then you want to call that differently as well. It needs to match this tag here for the root component. And this is just a URL for the template. In this case, you're using external file, and this is also an external file for your CSS. Okay, and this is ideal, especially if you have a large template or a lot of CSS, then you want to use external file. Of course, you can put internal here as well, and we'll show that later in a separate video. I think you might already seen it. All right, so this is the root component, and we add that to the module, the root module, and it bootstrap that to the index page. So everything will be fed through or to this app component add module here. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that if you later on when you create your modules, more components, you can put inside the app component add folder here. It's just easier to manage. Of course, some people like to put outside here, outside the app, which is fine. It doesn't really matter as long as they're inside the src folder, I suppose. But if this is your app, then usually you put inside your app folder here. Again, no rule, it's just a preference. But I'll be putting inside the app folder because everything will be contained within the app folder. Okay, so I think that is all I want to talk about in this video. And then in the next video, we're going to create the, I'll show you how to create one component, and then also show you how to apply the Bootstrap template to this this app here. Okay. So if you have any questions, again, just shoot me an email, let me know, or post a question in the discussion board.